Hello and welcome. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Jabari Fraser. This is The Current Affair. The Congress of the People in 2010 was the second partner in the coalition that became the People's Partnership government. Winston Dukaran negotiated the party's way into the Faizabad Declaration. The COP and its promise of new politics won 6 seats. In 2011, Prakash Ramadhar became political leader. 2014 saw him re-elected to lead the party that sees itself as the partnership's moral compass. The COP is no longer the growing force it once was. How will it fare in 2015? Good evening, Mr. Ramadhar.
Good evening. Good to be with you.
Thank you for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me.
How do you rate your stewardship over the last 5 years?
Well, it's been difficult, but I think we've navigated very difficult waters, and we are here today in government, having delivered on the dream and expectations of the COP in a large part. We've done so much, there's much more to do. Of course, there will be criticism in anything, and I have had my unfair share of criticism. But when the truth is told, and long-term vision is looked at, I think many, and they've started already to realize that I did it right.
Seems to me that it was more than difficult.
Well, I'm trying to be as diplomatic as I could be, but you know, professionally I had grown myself strong and with an ability to endure grave difficulties.
Why do you say it was unfair to you?
Well, a lot of the criticisms were without any factual basis.
Such as?
Well, first of all, this issue of being weak, I don't know where that came from, because the perception, I could only imagine the perception that strength comes from being loud and being vociferous and being almost warring-like. I believe, that the politics requires more dignified approach to things and solving problems. I give you a prime example. When Tim Hamel-Smith was removed as president of the Senate, many stood up and walked away. They were angry, and probably with good cause. I said, no, we must fix it. I went to the Prime Minister and said, we need to resolve this matter.
But didn't the Prime Minister come to you and speak about it beforehand?
She indicated to me just, you know, in a short period of time when the decision had already been communicated to him. And we fixed it to the extent now that Tim Hamel-Smith will chair the implementation committee of the procurement legislation.
But that certainly isn't on the level of being the president
Oh, it
of the
is
Senate.
far more important to the society in terms of its value. It is a and I'm happy you said what you said so that we could explore what that means. One of the biggest ills of the society and of politics is the perception of corruption in all politicians. That when you hold political office, it's there about giving favors to friends and for your own enrichment. As a result of that, we've seen a decline in respect for politicians. We knew full well that corruption has been a problem that the society has endured for generations. And we took a view that instead of talking about it, let's fix this thing.
And would you say that the partnership has fixed corruption?
We have put in place a mechanism that will fix this thing called corruption.
But what about the first 5 years that, you know, these allegations of corruption, and certainly live sport is a prime example.
Absolutely. And therefore, we took steps to fix it. The live sport is one example, but I could give you a long list over the many years, but I'm not going to trouble you with the past history. We deal with the present and look to the future.
But
no, but let me just explain this.
Influence it as well.
It does, and that is why we came in with a promise to deal with procurement legislation. Look at the timeline for procurement legislation.
There was also a promise to deal with campaign finance legislation.
And we come into that too.
But that was urgent in the first
both are urgent, and the more urgent one is procurement legislation. Let me explain why. Procurement legislation deals with the award of contracts and the issue of any financial dealings you have with the state. If you get that right, campaign and party finance reform is critically important, yes. But without procurement legislation in place, it really matters not as much if you had campaign and party finance reform alone. Because you may have persons who are willing to support a political party and to donate to them. Does that necessarily mean that it should be you should avoid giving them any work from the state if they bid properly and they give you the best value for money and everything is above board? Absolutely not. So that the procurement legislation levels the playing field for all. Whether you donate, you don't donate.
But the procurement legislation hasn't even been proclaimed as yet. So that's,
who says that?
Has it been proclaimed?
In a large part, we are that is why the implementation committee is there, so that we have to create.
It hasn't been implemented.
There is, I can't tell you the exact date, as to which parts may have been proclaimed or to be proclaimed, but it is a work in progress as a promise to this nation. And having Tim Hamlin-Smith at the head, he will determine now in terms of the administration that is required. Because as you know, to make it effective, there are offices that have to be created, staff to be hired, and a lot of things to be put in place. That is being done. So that is a quantum leap in the way Trinidad and Tobago will do business into the future.
So if the campaign finance legislation, for example, was so important, why did it have to wait until 4.5 years to form a joint select committee to even consider it? And even so, it wasn't even moved by a
well, we did what we could in
senator.
terms of the, well, let me put it like this. If you look at the number of legislative changes that we have made, all of them are important. We had tremendous legislative time passed dealing with a lot of criminal laws.
But doesn't the time spent taken to reach to the campaign finance legislation show that it it wasn't top priority anyway?
We had many top priorities.
But
and let me
that
just
is one of them.
That is one of them.
All of these corruption allegations that
Jabari,
has gone through.
yeah, we could go down that route of focusing on one thing and not look at the other things that we have done. All right? And let me just say, we saw the need. Could I just say this, right? Rather than I interview you, right? You could hear the answers. The reality of procurement legislation, we saw that as a higher priority than any other. A joint select committee was put in place. And the opposition, they too had an important part to play. And for a year, they abdicated their responsibility. We took the decision, with or without them, we were going to go on. And because of public pressure, they came back. That delayed things a whole lot. Otherwise, we would have had the implementation in this thing.
Close to the end of the
That is not correct. That is not correct. When did it start?
When did the GSC come into that?
I think in 2012, we could check the date. That's a simple fix. But it was relatively early in our term. There are many things that we had to do. But we took that on. And then there was, after we had formulated the legislation, there was further consultation because there were criticisms back and forth. And I want to congratulate Minister Tiwari for taking, again, a different view and listening to everybody, at the end of which we have legislation that I think may not be universally acceptable, but it is generally acceptable, having regard to all of the competing interests and so. So we have that. That we cannot underestimate the value of that. If that alone, without campaign and party finance reform, is brought into the population's reality, then that is most significant. And I was making the point, campaign and party finance reform without that would have had very little effect.
Is that more important to the COP than it is to the UNC in the scheme of the partnership?
No, I think none of, look, we had an agenda from 2007.
And has that
coming into
been allowed to flourish?
Absolutely.
Since 2010, as part of the
partnerships manifesto, in a large part, includes the policy initiatives of the Congress of the People. And most, if not all, of those promises have been fulfilled, one of which, of course, is the issue of campaign and party finance reform. We can't succeed in everything. And I could understand your angst that that has not been put at, like in the first week that we came in.
No, it's not my angst, but it was a prominent promise.
It is.
And, up to the end of the first term, it hasn't happened.
I agree. There are many things in the past, and I'm not to say who have failed and where we have succeeded. In the past, nobody even took the effort to do it. We have taken that initiative, and the Prime Minister...
just spoke about the past not being important, so let's focus on the present.
Yeah, no.
And why hasn't it
I'm
happened?
saying, I did not say that the past is not important.
Okay.
But we sometimes, we're not going to focus on it. Having learned from it, I always believe it is important to have a review mirror from time to time. But look at your windscreen where we're going.
Mr. Ramadhar, keep that review mirror handy. We're going to have to take a quick break. This is the current affair.
Yes.
Look your MP, but where? Look your MP, where? Look your MP, look him there, looky there, don't let him get away. Look your MP, but where? Look your MP, but where? Look your MP, look him there, looky there.
Those are the statistics for parliamentary performance for Prakash Ramadhar, certainly very impressive compared to some of the others who have contributed. Mr. Ramadhar, the COP as a part of the partnership, how important is it? The UNC has wiped the floor with the COP several times.
Who says that? You say that.
That's the reality.
Many say that,
because
but wipe the floor.
You called for the resignation of Jack Warner. You called for him to step down
Yes.
while there were investigations. While he cleared his name, the Prime Minister ignored you completely.
That is not true.
So
let me tell you,
why
hold
did you
on,
have to resign?
Jabari,
So go ahead.
you know, I appreciate your position.
It's not my position, Mr. Ramadhar. That's
Well,
the reality.
somebody's position, that is no reality. That is a perception. Let me explain. When we took the view that Jack Warner ought not to be in the parliament, it was on the basis of allegations. Now, I want to tell you this, that might be a little bit surprising, but when you listen to it, you realize it ought not to be. Sitting as you are, you and I could listen to things and say, listen, he should go, he should do whatever. But when you have to make decisions, it changes. When you have to actually be responsible for decisions.
But wasn't it a responsible decision to have Jack Warner step down? And
it was my view,
why
and
didn't the Prime Minister listen to you?
when it germinated further and resolved itself when we had the Simmons report, it became more than just allegations. And the Prime Minister acted at our request.
Did she act, or did he resign? Because she said that she has accepted the resignation of Mr. Warner.
Listen, that's a matter for the Prime Minister and Mr. Warner.
So then, for all intents and purposes, she
as far as I'm concerned, right, we went to her, and very shortly thereafter, Mr. Warner was no longer a member of the cabinet.
Well, Mr. Warner isn't the only example. We had the situation with Marlene Kudre. We had the situation
excellent example to show the strength of the COP.
Example of Anil Roberts.
Yes.
And the life sports scandal.
There
and
we
the
go.
COP's position was very clear.
Absolutely.
But the Prime Minister didn't act until the pressure became too intense.
Now, once again, let's deal with the Marlene Kudre issue. When the COP had understood itself to hold the mayorship of San Fernando, and it was changed because Marlene went over and became a deputy political leader of the UNC. I said, look, we couldn't allow this. It wasn't about the office as much as it was about the principle that we had agreed to this. And I went to the Prime Minister again. There was a time of high anxiety that the COP should walk. Many said we would. That's the front page headlines of the newspapers.
And there was even talk that you would be losing your cabinet position.
I would never lose, because nobody could fire me. I would leave if I have to. There was a lot of talk of that.
And wasn't there enough pressure around COP positions and the Prime Minister ignoring COP positions for you to have resigned in a few instances?
Well, let me just say, this shows the resolve of myself and the Congress of the People. We made a promise to this nation.
Resolve or subservience? That,
Jabari, you use language. You know, it is like the classic line in the criminal courts, have you stopped beating your wife? Once you put the question in that tone and term, then it doesn't matter what I answer. But I will tell you this.
I'm asking you questions.
No, you're not. You're putting it in such language that suggests no matter what I say, you have defined my answer.
No, that's not true, Mr. Ramadhar.
Oh, well, okay, if you're saying it's not so, well, I'm delighted to hear that. All right, there's no subservience. So we said, let me show you what happened in Marlene Kudre's situation. I went to the Prime Minister. There was high anxiety. I cannot disclose to the nation the private conversations I had, but there was an undertaking to resolve it, and that required time. What happened is that the COP regained the mayorship of San Fernando. Marlene Kudre was taken out of mayorship and made a minister. And we got back our mayorship.
So you showed the Prime Minister that the COP wasn't pleased about that?
Absolutely.
And she listened?
Of course.
Okay.
We have a very healthy, respectful relationship. It's no buddy-buddy. I represent a party, she does. She has responsibilities as Prime Minister, I have responsibilities as a cabinet minister and also as a political leader of a coalition government that many wanted to see succeed and many others did not and wish it to fall. There was a narrow line that one had to walk to push without breaking things. And in relation to Anil Roberts and the other examples, at the end of which it may not have happened in the timeline you would have wanted it, or possibly I.
Okay.
When I say you, I'm speaking about the general public, or that I. But the fact is, at the end of the day, action was taken that satisfied many. So we have no magic button to press to get immediate responses on things. This is the real world and the real politics in real life in Trinidad and Tobago. And therefore, if you don't appreciate the very many different competing interests and requirements and duties, then it is very simple to say, oh, shoulda, coulda, woulda. We did, and we have. Yes.
Do you think things could have been improved, or could
of course.
be improved if there was some sort of more formal power structure arrangement within the coalition?
Well, structure is one thing in writing, but what is more important is the relationship.
So are you saying that the Prime Minister doesn't really take on what's in writing? Or?
No.
Okay.
There you go again.
I'm asking.
I'm making a general statement. You could put to me that the Prime Minister, whatever, but I can't answer that. That's a matter for her. What I can tell you is that there is great respect for the views of the Congress of the People and I as a political leader. And they're not lightly dismissed. And that is not to blow my own trumpet. It is a matter of the formula for the success of the partnership in its 5 difficult years, because we've been under attack unrelentingly from several quarters. Many of them, their interest is not to build, but to break. I and the other partners knew full well we had to succeed on behalf of Trinidad and Tobago. That is why, in terms of the hospitals, the healthcare, the educational levels, the infrastructural development in the society, Trinidad and Tobago is in a far better place today in 2015 than it was in 2010.
Do you have any aspirations at some point to lead the partnership?
Look,
That could see the COP's position more prominent.
We all have ambitions to ensure that our influence is ever expanded. At this point in time, the Prime Minister remains the leader of the partnership. We continue to work to develop our own strengths in the Congress of the People, and we do the work that is necessary for the COP to take its place. And against all of the criticisms and all of the insinuations and all the words that have been used to describe us, we are very much alive in terms of our passion, in terms of what we have been able to achieve in government. At the height of our popularity in 2007, I must repeat this because it is sometimes not obvious to many, we reached 148,000 votes, not a single seat. We could not put a single one of our policies into effect. We have been able to do almost all of our policies have been given some level of effect.
What do you think contributed to the decline of the party from 2007 until 2015?
Very simply this, the real old politics.
So you were not able to implement new politics, even along with your
There you go.
predecessor.
Look, I do not know how you arrive at that
Well,
conclusion
I'm
from the
asking,
statement.
the premise of the
we
COP
have
was new
improved the
and
politics.
148,000 votes
the new
until 2,673 votes in the internal election. Certainly that's a decline.
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened is simply this. When we lost elections in 2007, many gave up faith that there could be no change in the politics. Forget the numbers that you refer to. I'll tell you why. What has happened is that the policies that we wanted to implement, we have. The reason that there has been a fallout in terms of the numbers of the support of the COP is that we are limited in the seats that we have to along the East-West Corridor and San Fernando West.
But people who didn't have seats before, people like Vernon Dilemma and people who have clearly fallen out with the party, the Griffiths, never had.
Let's examine Vernon Dilemma, right? He wanted the party to break with the partnership.
Based on certain fundamental flaws.
Well, you give me the example. You give me the example.
Conflicts that he saw with the new politics.
Give me the example, because you say what he saw. You tell me what he saw.
Based on what he said, conflicts
what did he
with
say?
New politics, that new politics were not implemented. So I'm putting...
Like what? Give me the example.
I don't know specifically.
Well, there you go. So be careful,
but
Mr.
Ramadhar,
and I am telling you, sir, with all due respect, that Vernon Dilemma had a view, and I respect him. I admire him as a lawyer, but didn't quite appreciate the need for that level of give and take in the politics to ensure that the partnership remained in place, so that notwithstanding a lot of the criticisms, we could achieve far more. If this government, if the COP had broken with the partnership, we may not have been in power today.
So
many of the things...
people like Winston Dukaran and Caroline C. Prasad Bechan, who are so clearly disenchanted with where the COP has
You must ask them.
So
they were part and parcel.
That is,
they are part and parcel of the COP, and they went up for leadership positions, and they did not succeed.
That's a bad reflection on your leadership.
Tell me how.
That this founding father of the COP is not satisfied with where the COP has got to today.
How could we, Jabari, you know, let us examine. Did he say what his disappointment was?
No, well,
right. Well, let us deal then. What is clear was that in 2007 we fought in 41 seats. In 2010 we fought, I think, in 14 seats. We obtained 6. All right. In National Party contracted itself in the partnership, and it was necessary to have won. He had preeminent right as a possible prime ministerial candidate. He was not. As a result of a lot of things Mr. Dukaran did not put himself for leadership in 2011, but supported a candidate for leadership in 2014 on the basis that he will return as chairman if that candidate won. That candidate did not win. I cannot take from the equation what it is that he finds disappointing, but for you to assume, or anyone to assume, is on the basis of my leadership, well, then I challenge him to a debate with you.
Your leadership, and I'm talking about the decline of the party since when he was in charge and
Sir,
since the founding
sir,
date
it is
of the party.
obvious, as I explained before, a party that was a national party fighting in every constituency in Trinidad and Tobago.
So the COP within the frame of the People's Partnership has no room for growth. Is that what you're saying?
No, it has room for growth. Of course it does.
So if it had to become part of a bigger picture, where is the room for growth? If you're saying that that was the basis for the decline.
Well, I did not negotiate in 2010.
So the negotiations were flawed.
Jabari, is either you want to interview yourself or you want to interview
No, I
me.
don't want to interview myself.
Right?
We invited you to the program to answer the question.
And I am going to answer questions, but you are putting your questions in statements of fact with a question mark at the end. There's always room.
What you're saying, Mr. Ramadhar.
And I will challenge you in a debate any day.
No
it's
problem.
either interview or a debate.
That's what we're here for.
Right? It's either interview
conversation,
or a
and
debate.
conversation is
Which
an
is it? Let us get this clear. Is it an interview or a debate? Because if it's a debate, well, then we will change gears a little bit. I love debates.
With politicians,
I
but
love
I'm
debates.
asking you
Yes.
very simply.
Yes.
Very simply about
If there's room.
If there's room for growth of the COP within the framework of the People's Partnership. I'm not asking anything else.
Right.
That's what I'm asking you.
Then we come now, what is the COP? The COP is not just a party and a party name. It is a set of values and principles and policies. And therefore, if you look at it from that point of view, the COP has enormously grown within the partnership because we have been able to influence all of these things. The new standards we had hoped to set have been set. No longer will a politician believe that they could do wrong and be protected and covered. The time for that is in the rearview mirror, as we spoke about. Every politician coming into the game today must know, first of all, that if you have skeletons in your closet, be very, very careful. Times have changed. We will inspect you with a microscope or whatever. And that if you lived your life dishonorably, don't even bother to come.
Prakash Ramadhar, this is a current affair. Stay tuned. Back. Remember, you can send us your comments and suggestions on Twitter at TV6TNT, at Jabari Fraser, using the hashtag A Current Affair. Give us some feedback on Facebook too. CCN TV News is the name of our page. Mr. Ramadhar, let's look a little bit into the future now.
Oh, yes.
The COP has, at present, it won 6 seats. How many seats do you intend to push for within the framework of the People's Partnership?
Well, as it is now, we are working on the 6 seats we now hold. And when nominations are closed, ours close next week, Friday. I think the UNC is
closed on Friday.
Closed today.
Okay.
Well, sorry, I beg your pardon, on Friday, yes. And at that end, we would have further negotiations to look who have the better candidate in any seat with the better or the best likelihood of success. And from there, we'll then see it's about quality of candidates that will determine.
Where are you going to contest the election? In your current seat?
Me?
Yes, in St. Augustine.
No, I'm in St. Augustine.
Yes.
He was in Tunapuna.
No, where are you going to contest? In
St. Augustine, yes.
Going back for St. Augustine?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
The NACTA polls, several polls have shown
yes.
that the COP
several, no, let's make up your mind. Is NACTA or which several?
NACTA and Solution by Simulation.
What did they say?
The COP has lost a lot of ground that it had in the East-West corridor.
Absolutely.
How do you feel about that?
Well, we take that as a reality. But let me deal with the NACTA, right? Their big revelation is that the COP will not win a seat. Of course the COP knew that since 2007. And that is why we very...
But you won seats in 2010.
Absolutely. Together with our partners. So, and therefore the support of the partners are important in the COP's success in the seats that we now hold, as some of the partner seats require the help and support of COP supporters in their seats to win.
So you need UNC support to win COP seats?
Absolutely. That's what the partnership and coalition is all about.
Knowing so why not just join the UNC?
Not at all. We are an independent party. Are you suggesting that?
I'm asking you, if
we will not.
If the COP cannot stand on its own to win seats,
to win government. Hold on. To win government.
I never said anything about government.
I know. I am telling you now that it makes no sense for us to go on our own to lose. We have a winning formula which we came up with in 2010. It may not have been the best, but a one government that we were able to do things we could not have done before. I'm very proud of that. So that to suggest that the COP must go on its own and be polled on its own to win is really a waste of time. And I would like to know who paid for that poll.
To be, would it be all right then to be an advocate with a few seats rather than part of the government?
An advocate with a few seats?
An advocate in opposition.
You mean like a pressure group?
A pressure group, more than a pressure group, because you have parliamentary seats.
But let me ask you this question. If it is that you have the reality of not just arguing for things but making it happen, would you be an advocate or a doer? Which would you do?
No, I'm asking you.
And I am asking you now, because that is the reality I am faced with.
To me, an advocate can get things done.
Really? In Trinidad and Tobago?
You tell me. That shows, for example, when you campaigned in 2010, and prior to 2010, with your Axe to Tax campaign, you were advocating without a seat at that point.
And it took a change of government to change the policy. When we fought against the smelter in South, it took a change of government to deal with that. When we advocated against the rapid rail that would run through the most densely populated areas of the East-West Corridor and into central Trinidad, destroying communities, it took a change of government to do that. I fought all these battles, almost hopelessly, but when we came into government, we did it. Children's Life Fund, we fought for that, hopelessly.
Allegations of corruption?
Allegations, go find the truth, sir, with all due respect.
The Prime Minister said that she would be investigating it.
Exactly, but you have said allegations of corruption. There are allegations of all kinds in this society, and you, as a member of the media, need to find the truth and not just run with the allegations.
Well, we are doing our investigations.
No, well, all due respect, you see, because I had, yesterday came to me.
On Thursday night, you spoke about members of the media going and taking allegations up and giving them more prominence than responses.
And investigate them, and if allegations, it is found out to be reckless and without basis, there must be a consequence to it. The allegations come in with a scream and a shout, but the truth comes in as a whimper.
Mr. Ramadhar, thank you very much.
Is that it?
We're going to have a little bit of extended time for our online version, but just let me squeeze in something at my, at the expense of my producers, pulling my hair out afterwards. Out of 10, how do you rate this government's performance?
A strong 7.5 to 8.
Thank you. This is A Current Affair. Stay tuned for our online version, which we'll see posted on the TV6 TNT page. I'm Jabari Fraser. Good evening.